Good afternoon and welcome to the CannaList conversation. I am your host, Patrick Doherty, and we are here today with Owen Shuster of IMC, Cannabis or IMC, located in Israel. Welcome, Oren. What's going on? You guys have been busy, I see.
Yeah, we're trying. We have to execute. It's we have shareholders.
I received a recent press release that you have acquired an online pharmacy. Can you tell us about that and why you did that?
Yeah, so we acquired Panaxia Online, which is the biggest online pharmacy in Israel, doing home delivery, most of it same day of home delivery, one of the oldest in Israel. And the reason that we acquired that, it's because, first of all, it's the leading service. So I think that for us, it's something that means something. We are going into the retail segment in Israel now as part of our vertical integration approach. And we decided to start with the online because, first of all, it covers all of Israel. It's not specific to one location. It's nationwide operation, so it makes sense for us to start with that. And we're going to improve it. The idea is to give better services, to have and to have it as a base for our retail presence. And we're going to continue now with physical brick and mortar operation all across the country.
And just to back up a little bit, how long has IMC been around?
So we started to work in 2010. Since 2010, we are operational. One of the first companies in the world actually to grow medical cannabis. And for many years, we've been growing, processing, and we supply directly to patients. So we collected a lot of data, a lot of know-how. We've done many clinical surveys. I think that it's very unique, the fact that for many years, we have been able to supply directly to patients. And because we supply directly to patients, we knew who are the patients, what kind of indications they have, what strains they are getting, the quantities. And we have done many surveys to validate the clinical data and to match between the strains, the effect of the strains, on different diseases. I think that we are very solid with the know-how that we have today.
And is Israel medicinal only, or is it medicinal and recreational?
Israel is medicinal. However, the Israeli market is a very unique market because in Israel, the black market is more expensive than the medical market. And it's a very unique situation. And because of that, many people have incentive actually to get a prescription for medical cannabis, even if it's sometimes minor, because it's legal and it's cheaper than the black market.
And is that because the government's subsidizing it?
No, it's mainly because the black market is very expensive. So the black market is very expensive because Israel is a relatively small country surrounded by enemies. So no smuggling also almost to the Israeli market. And because it's small, it's very easy to monitor illegal grow in the Israeli market. So because of that, I think that the prices are very high. More than that, according to official data, 27% of the population in Israel use cannabis illegally. And that means a lot of cannabis, actually.
And yet you operate beyond Israel, right? So you're also in Europe, you're in Canada. Tell us a little bit about the European market and how it differs from the Israeli market.
So we are in Europe. We are focusing first of all in Germany. Germany is the most advanced market in Europe today regarding medical cannabis.
Right. It's a medicinal market, right?
Medicinal market, about 80,000 patients, very similar, by the way, to the Israeli market in numbers as well. And the regulation is very similar to what we used to see in the Israeli market. Everything is going through pharmacies, everything has to be GMP certified. Very similar. We have EU GMP facility in Germany. And have done an acquisition of a German distributor and a GMP facility in March 19. Since then, we are working in Germany. We are selling our own branded products in Germany through a network of distributors that we have in Germany. We have about 10 distributors that are covering the German market. And what we're doing today in Germany, we're building a very big logistics center to be able to serve the EU market from Germany. So the idea is that in Germany, we will have the GMP and the distribution center. We are bringing product to the German market. And from Germany, we're distributing it to the rest of Europe. Europe is starting to open up. We see that the UK have started a program. France is in a pilot program. Switzerland have a pilot program for recreational. So the EU market is starting to move in a, I would say, slow pace relatively. On the other hand, we're talking about a huge market, more than 500 million people. I'm not speaking about Russia and those countries. I'm speaking about Western Central Europe. So no question that it's going to be a huge market, very strong purchasing power, a very social approach economies. For example, in Germany, 60% of the prescription are being reimbursed. And I think that it will be very similar in Europe. So Europe is going to be a huge market, and that's the time to build the fundamentals for the operation.
And what we've seen in Europe is a lot of the big Canadian power players have, just descended upon Europe. How has that affected your business? And, because, the Canadian players have such a presence here in Europe, how has that impacted you trying to come in from, Israel?
So I think that we have many advantages because we are coming from the medical market with a lot of experience, and Israel is very advanced in cannabis research and medical cannabis, because research have started in Israel in the early 60s when Professor Meshulam discovered the THC. Since then, we have continuous research in Israel. In any university, any hospital that you will go in Israel, you will find clinical research and other research about cannabis and cannabinoids. And one of the advantages that IMC is bringing to the German market and to the EU market as a whole, which is more medical market, is that approach. We are coming with a lot of data, a lot of know-how that we validated for many years, clinical data based on real and actual patients. We worked with physicians on that. So we're coming with something with added value to the doctors and to the professional community in Germany, for example, that the other competitors like the Canadian don't have. They started much later than we have started. It's much more recreational market than medical. Medical market in Canada is a fraction of the market. No real attention into that, and no one is treating that differently. And more than that, the direct connection that we had for many years with our patients give us an added value that I think no one in the world today can have this kind of added value.
Yeah, I mean, one of the key things that you mentioned is this idea of these clinical trials, because in order to be able to prescribe as well as be reimbursed, right, we need evidence-based, studies that demonstrate that this is an effective, protocol, which, like you said, I think a lot of the Canadian players don't have, right? They will make claims or suggest that it might do things, but they don't have the clinical backup to support those claims.
Yeah, and the German market, if you're speaking on the German market, is therefore very different, because in Germany, a doctor have to prescribe the brand. So you have to approach the doctor. Now, when you approach the doctor, it's not enough to say, prescribe my brand. You have to come with something that will make him prescribe your brand. What we've done, we took all the data that we collected and all the experience that we're bringing, and this is our educational materials for the doctors that we are working with in order to prescribe our brand. So we are bringing them real, actual added value, not just sales. And I think that this is one of the advantages that we have in the German market, and we see the feedbacks and the reaction is amazing, actually.
And one of the things about the German market, especially from people in North America, we're used to, big sort of drugstore chains, right? Whereas in the German market, these are, privately owned. I think the most that anyone can own is four.
Three, I think.
Three, right? So I mean, that obviously that makes distribution more of a challenge. And you mentioned you have 10 distribution partners, but can you talk about how that distribution is so difficult?
So, like you said, okay, that's true. Okay, most of the market is mom and pops because it's not there aren't real big chains in the market. So you need actual accessibility to all those pharmacies. I think that what we have done is exactly in order to solve that, and we have a very good accessibility to the market. And we are willing to give some of our margin to our partners because we are building a long-term relationship with our partners. We are supporting them. The idea of the logistics center, some of it is also to make the life easier for our partners because we want to have big quantities in Germany so that none of them will have to make big commitments in advance and so on. The idea is that our partners will be able to call us to order for tomorrow the quantity that they want, and immediately they have it. Because today they have to ask for import license, go through a process with the Ministry of Health. The idea is to save all of that to our partners. So I think that, but by what we are building is a very good market access. And the distribution, which is the fundamental when you look about the market like the German market.
And you noted that in order to get the medicinal product in Germany, you need to have a prescription from a doctor. So what are you doing to, as far as education, when it comes to these doctors, as to use this alternative to what they've been using for years?
So we have a local group of doctors and professionals that we are working with in order to adjust what we are doing in other markets to the German market. And this is what we are communicating to the doctors as well. We have a very significant sales team that doing most educational materials for the doctors about our brands and our products and the effectiveness and so on. And you have to work closely with the doctors in Germany. There isn't any other way. If you are a real player that want to sell your brand, because it's a branded market.
And in Germany, is this interest being led by the patients who then go to the doctor and say, I want to look at this? Or, who's leading the education? Are the patients leading the doctors or the doctors leading the patients?
It's a very good question, first of all, because it's mixed. It depends. Most of it today, it's doctors, and I think that what we're starting to see is a change in the market. More patients are getting more involved. So I think that it's a mixture with people that are very, more old people, like people that are really sick. It's more the doctors. Some others have more. Some patients are very involved
and actively seeking out, these types of treatments.
Yeah, definitely.
And after Germany, what's the plan in Europe?
So in Europe, we will start to sell this year through our German facility without having physical presence in other countries. Later, we will have also physical presence, and we are watching the EU market. UK is very interesting, although it's a very small market now, but I strongly believe in that market. France is very interesting, and I think that it will take some time because the pilot program is for 2 years. The Polish market is very interesting because it's very similar to the German market.
But it's a different model than what you're using in Israel, because you're using a retail model in Israel, right?
Yeah, but in Poland is very similar to Germany, but on the other side, in Poland, you have retail, you have chains,
Okay.
like other places. So each market, even in Europe, have different behavior and different structure. Although everything is EU GMP. Now, this is one of the advantages in the EU market because unlike America, where it's state by state, you have the EU regulation, which is for all of the EU. On the other side, each country can have their own regulation as internal frame. But if you have a facility with EU GMP, you can ship it to all the countries in the EU. So, and that's one of the biggest advantages and differences between the EU market and, for example, the American market.
And that's also one of the advantages of starting in Germany, because Germany, as a rule, tends to be the most stringent when it comes to regulations. So, if it works in Germany, it almost always works in another EU state.
You're so right. That's the reason why we went to Germany. Because if you can work in Germany, which is very rigid, you can work in anywhere in Europe. This is because of that, the center, all the focus, everything that we are investing now and all the infrastructure that we are building is in Germany. The toughest, but after you have succeeded that, everything is much easier.
And then tell us a little bit about North America and what you're doing in North America.
So we are focusing in the Canadian market and we're public in NASDAQ. So the focus in Canada is because Canada is legal and Canada have invested.
Legal as in recreational.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Canada have invested a lot of money in infrastructure to go grow cannabis, especially indoor facilities. Now we have greenhouses in Israel. We don't have indoor facilities. And the logic for us to go to Canada was, first of all, to take control over indoor facilities that can supply premium and super premium products, because our markets are premium markets. If you look at the Israeli market and Germany, the prices that we're getting is premium prices comparing to the Canadian market, for example. Okay, and I believe that the markets will continue with those prices, especially the EU market is going to explode in the coming years. There will be a constant need for a product. The Israeli market, because the black market is more expensive, there isn't any pressure on the premium product to go down in the Israeli market, because the pressure usually is from the black market. So we will need more and more product. And also in Israel, in the last year, in 2020, indoor products from Canada gained huge popularity in Israel. So it makes sense for us to have control. And the idea is that, like I said, Canada is like a pillar that is going to supply the local market with premium and super premium products, and the rest will go to Israel and later to Europe.
And we've seen, just to change subject a little bit, we've seen some acquisitions recently in the market of some big players that are resulting in large consolidations. What do you think that means for the market?
I think that the market is in the middle of a consolidation wave. I think that it won't stop. We're starting to see that the market, the landscape is starting to change significantly. And companies, we can see the big companies and the small companies. Almost no one in the middle. Very few players, like mid players. So I think that what we will start to see is also consolidation in the mid level, what we don't have today in the market. And for many small companies, it will be very difficult to survive, because if I'm an investor, I want to go for something that I know that will less risk. The small ones have higher risk. And I want to go with the winners. So I think that we will see still a process of consolidation, because for the small one, it will be very difficult to raise money and to survive in this kind of environment.
And do you see a big difference operationally, when you're pursuing the medicinal space versus the recreational space?
It depends where. And in Canada, less. In Europe, you have only medical. But
We have it, but we have it in different formats, right? So here in Spain, we have the clubs, which are, it's a weird thing, but they're looking into what they're going to do with that. But it's illegal, but it's not, but it is kind of thing.
The big difference is, first of all, the regulation, the GMP standards.
Yeah.
The GMP standard, GMP is not just a word. It's a standard. It's talk about quality, processes, and so on. And it brings with it, beside the name, many costs that are associated to this process. So I think that this is the biggest difference between, for example, the Canadian market and the Israeli and the German market and the EU market that we will see. You don't see it today in America because the FDA is not in the market.
Mm.
Once America will be regulated, the FDA will be involved. America, I'm not sure that people understand that. America will be a completely different market as well, once the FDA will go into the market, because, it's the FDA.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages when that finally happens.
Yeah.
And what about, so what's the long term? Will you be looking at, other countries for, places to grow and things like that?
Of course. So if we're speaking about the future, first of all, like I said, the EU market is the main market that we're going to focus in the coming years. And it's a good market to focus in because it's only in the beginning. Yeah. So there is plenty of room to grow. Now we're focusing more on building the infrastructure. And we have advantage in that because we're building the infrastructure and we are still in the market. We're monitoring the market all the time. So we're not losing the market. On the other end, because the market is moving slowly, we can still focus on building the infrastructure to be ready. So once the market will start and will grow significantly, we will be able to grow with the market and to supply to the market immediately.
And do you feel that being based in Israel has given you an advantage because of the research and the clinical trials and that's going on?
Yeah, I think that Israel is an excellent base because of all the ecosystem in Israel that can support us very, very well. And also we have a very good view because the Israeli market is the medical market. But because of the nature of the market, because the black market is very expensive, and because many people use cannabis, many users in the medical cannabis are not 100% medical. Some of them are recreational people that get prescriptions. So even the Israeli market is a mixed market, and the fact that we are in Canada, in recreational, in Germany, full medical, give us a better perspective over the markets and how to manage this kind of market, which is mixed market between recreational and medical. So I think that this is an advantage in Israel. We have a very good view, and we are getting also a lot of know-how that we're bringing, for example, from Canada, which is more mature market, recreational. They've seen some of the cycles that other markets haven't seen yet. So I think that this international aspect gives us a huge added value to each of the countries, actually.
And are you doing anything in the CBD space?
CBD today that we're dealing is CBD that is coming from medical cannabis, not from hemp.
Okay.
We are watching the CBD market very closely. In Israel today, CBD by itself without prescription is not allowed, although it will come. So definitely once it will be legal in Israel, we will go into it. In Europe, in some places, it's still not 100%. I mean, 100% clear, the regulation about that.
Yeah, I mean, they've made some big sort of, the EU Commission obviously did some rulings, because they were going down a path and then they reversed themselves.
Yeah.
But a lot of it's, even I'm sure you're aware in Germany that there's still a lot of regulations that are regional and stuff like that. So what you can do in one area, you can't necessarily do it in another area.
Yeah, you're right. Germany as a federation, not many people know that. We can see it also in medical cannabis, huge differences between, for example, Bavaria and Berlin. Okay. Yeah, definitely agree with you. We are watching this market. We are not there yet. We prefer to focus first of all in the highly regulated markets, which is the THC. Because in the THC, there are very high barriers of entry into the market, especially highly regulated market. And like I said, we focused on the highly regulated markets, not only THC in Germany. Okay, GMP facility in Germany. So we are focusing first of all in places where to other competitors, it's much more difficult to enter.
And then where will you go from Germany? What's your plan?
The next country?
Yeah.
We have few countries that we're watching. I don't know 100% to give a statement because there might be changes along the way. Let's see, I believe that it will be next year, only physical presence in another country. Give me a few months and I will give you a final answer.
That's fair enough.
Or invite me again.
Oh, of course we'll invite you again. So tell us a little bit more about, operating in Israel and how that differs from North America, which is probably where most of the audience is familiar with.
Yeah. So the Israeli market, like we said, is a medical market, but it's mixed. So it's very unique in that aspect. What we see now in Israel is that we see many products in the market. The market is very young comparing to others because it's an old market, but it opened up only in the last 2 years. So I think that it will take time for the market to be stable. What we are starting to see also in Israel is a very similar process like it was in North America, movement toward to over there it's dispensaries, in Israel it's pharmacies. So the retail side is now becoming more active, like IMC is going to the retail side, so there are other companies that are going there. And Israel is interesting market because first of all, the market here is very significant and it's growing in 4% on a monthly basis. And that's official numbers because the Ministry of Health is publishing the numbers on a monthly basis. So that's roughly the numbers. So it's a good market. And also Israel is in a pilot program for exportation from Israel to the EU, and some export went to Australia. So I think that once the market will start to open up, it will be a very significant export market into the EU market. And I think that most of the differences between here and Canada, for example, America is a completely different market. Is first of all that most of the product in Israel is coming from greenhouses.
We have medicinal, they have to, right?
Yeah, excellent natural conditions. In Canada, most of it is coming from indoor facilities. The approach is very much medical. In Israel, in Canada, it's recreational, medical. They have medical, but it's a non-issue. So we see many differences, but I think that the differences between the markets will go, and the markets will look, beside the regulation, we will see more and more similarities between the markets, I think.
And your growth strategies, based on some recent press releases, have been acquiring aspects of, the business or components of the business. Is that something you'll continue to do?
Yeah, we will continue. I believe in a mixture of M&As and organic growth. On the other hand, in this market, you can't grow only organically because the markets are moving so fast. This industry is moving so fast. If you want to do everything organically, you will lose the market. So it has to be a mixture between the two. In order to do acquisitions, you have to understand what you are doing. To come as a new player to the industry and to do acquisitions, it's something that I won't do because it's too risky. And this industry is more complicated than other industries that I'm familiar with because it's young, it's moving very quickly. And at the end of the day, the regulator is managing the businesses.
And
one change of the regulator, and it can change the course of the business.
And how do you deal with that, right? Because something can get passed, something can change, and that can completely redirect your company, right?
That's true, and it happened a few times in the past. We are working. We're trying to work very hard, very closely with the regulators in each of the places. On the other hand, from time to time, you have to do many changes. Some of them even significant because of regulations.
And how much input do you have for the regulators to sort of help guide them as to direction of the market?
So it depends. For example, if we're talking about Germany, then in Germany, for them, many things are new. So we are bringing a lot of many examples and experience from other places for the German regulator to see that it's okay. Some of the regulators that are coming into this industry, they are regulators. They don't want to do mistakes. At the end of the day, it's not a business decision for them.
Right. So they're going to be very conservative.
Exactly. So you have to support and to push, and to give them the comfort that they are not doing something which is wrong.
And how do you split your time, right? So you've got stuff going on in Israel, stuff going on in Germany, some stuff going in Canada. How do you manage those? Those are very different markets. So how do you manage that?
So first of all, it's all about the people. I think that we have excellent management teams. I think that's the key. By the way, for example, in Canada, that was the main reason for the acquisition that we've done, the people that joined to our group. And we have COVID for more than a year. And it's great because it's great. It's not great, but it's great in the aspect that working through Zoom is much more efficient. I'm doing meetings in Zoom. It's starting on time. You can be 30 people on Zoom. Everybody will be on time. The meeting will be finished on time. And we are working as a global company. Very easy, very comfortable. And we learned how to do it as a tool for us, the Zoom. And during the day, I'm doing Israel and Germany, and in the night, I'm with Canada.
And despite Zoom making it easier, those are three very different cultures, both work cultures and local cultures. So how do you deal with those differences?
It's a very good question. You have Israel and Germany, for example. I think that maybe opposites. And we spoke about it a lot from the beginning, about those differences and how we can work as a group. And from the beginning, for example, with Germany, we said together when we spoke, we said we will try to be more German and the Germans will try to be more Israelis. And we are really trying. I think that it helped all of us. because I think that all of us is trying to get the added value from each of our partners. On the other hand, we have challenges as well because of those differences. Sometimes someone is saying something and you don't really understand exactly what is the meaning behind what he said, okay, because you hear only the language, but you know, sometimes there is more than the language. So I think that we are learning more and more, and the advantages or disadvantage in Israel is that they are very straightforward and not politically correct. And in some ways, it's very comfortable because you know exactly what people think about you.
Mm.
So sometimes it's
very non-German, by the way.
It's very non-German. It's
right.
very non-German. For the Germans, sometimes it's difficult with that. Okay,
yeah.
They don't know how to digest it. But what we have seen is we've seen a change in them as well. So they are much more open and more direct, and so I think that we are coming closer all the time to each other.
Yeah, I worked in the US and then moved to Berlin. And my experience in Berlin was we would have meetings in English, but all the side conversations were in German. So, you really weren't participating because, anything that, they wanted to discuss without, us understanding, they would just switch to German. And, it was very challenging. So, it really, you have to sort of work through those cultural issues, especially as a global company to, figure those out. And then again, Canada's a whole nother culture and whatnot. But as you said, you figure those out and work them out. I mean, I think what's important, as you said, is the team and having someone local.
So today, in Israel, we have only the Israeli team. In Germany, we have only the German team, and in Canada, we have only the Canadian team. Now, I think the difference is it's a question also of industry, because in a highly regulated industry, when we're talking about drugs, okay, cannabis actually, and you are working in GMP standards, you want the team to be German. Okay, this is what I want to say. So I think that for us, Germany and the approach in Germany is a big added value and very significant what they bring also to the Israeli team. Because, the fact that they are very accurate and, it's no mistakes for them. In Israel, it's exactly the opposite, by the way. I'm saying all the time, do mistakes. If you do mistakes, it means that you are doing.
You're learning, right?
That you are doing, okay?
Yeah.
And many differences in the basic approach, okay? But in our industry, when, you want to, I said, highly regulated, you want to go with the regulation, you have to be organized. The German approach brings huge added value to the group.
And as we see the medicinal markets grow, have you felt any pushback from traditional pharmaceuticals? Or, what do you think the reaction is? Will they enter the market? Will large farmers join? And,
I have a back pain. I went to a pain physician a few days ago. And I didn't ask for cannabis. And she said to me, I want to prescribe you medical cannabis. And I started to speak. And 80% of the patients that are going to the pain clinic going with prescription to medical cannabis. No pharmaceutical company can ignore that.
Right.
So I think that they don't have any choice. Okay, if it will look like that in other places, she said to me, you shouldn't take opiates. She said to me, you shouldn't take opiates. She said to me, we as doctors have done a mistake for many years. We gave to people opiates. We have cannabis now. We don't have to give opiates. Mm-hmm. I think that there will be a huge impact on the traditional industry.
And how will that change, the cannabis players once the big farmers try to enter? Will you have been, established enough to, hold them off? Will you partner with them? What do you think the likely scenario would be?
I think that it will take time because one of the challenges in cannabis is the IP. That's the main reason why we are not seeing so much activity of pharmaceutical companies. I think that it's a question of time and of a business model. Because if you can protect something, why to invest huge amount of money to do R&D without the ability to protect it?
Right.
So I think that this is what is holding the pharmaceutical companies now, but it will change. It's only
And it's the market they understand. I mean, that's how they've operated for,
Yeah, and they have enough money in their own businesses. They will find a way to come into the market. It can be through delivery systems, development of more IP protected products, and it will take time also.
And are you expecting, I know that you've mentioned that, primarily what you're seeing is cannabis for pain relief and things like that, but we know that there's, other opportunities, for other conditions. So you think that we'll continue to explore that and find different uses for the plant?
Yeah, I believe that there will be 4 verticals, I believe, from the traditional industry, that some of them will be infused with the cannabis. It's pharmaceutical, beverage, food, and cosmetics. Okay, I think that we will see all of them, that cannabis will be kind of infused into them. We will see it in many products. I think that it's only the beginning what we see now. And I believe that in a few years, it will be so common that it will be like natural that cannabis is part of other beverages, food products, cosmetics, definitely.
Yeah, and I was sort of alluding to the fact that hopefully with more studies and more clinical trials, we can start to see it in things like cancer treatments and other medical conditions as well. We'll get approval of different uses for different therapies.
Yeah, in Israel, I'm involved, for example, in a company that is developing something for cancer, treatment for cancer. So we will see those kind of solutions, medications, but it won't happen tomorrow morning. People have to understand it takes time. Everything takes time.
Well, as it should, right? If it's a clinical trial, it should take time so that that we know it's safe and the efficacy is there and all that.
Yeah, I'm speaking about few years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what's on the horizon for the next 12 months? Where are you focused besides Germany?
So in Israel, we are going more to the retail side. We're going to continue and to have more presence in the retail side in Israel because, like I said, we strongly believe in that. We're going to continue and to follow and to look for more supply from Canada, steady supply, indoor, high quality. And we will continue with expansion in Germany. We have been listed in NASDAQ this year in March.
Congratulations.
Very, very significant step for us because only few companies are listed, cannabis companies are listed in NASDAQ. So it gives us a good access to one of the biggest capital markets in the world. And we also raised money this year. We raised 35 million just a couple of weeks ago. And the company has no debt, so we are very clean. We can continue to execute our plans without the pressure of raising money or doing financing. So I think the Times is in a very good position. I'm not familiar with any other company that is really focused in the main 3 legal countries in the world, traded in NASDAQ, no debts, have money in the bank. I think that IMC is in a very good position today.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S. companies are U.S. focused, so they're busy there. So yeah, very uniquely positioned. And again, I think one of your key advantages is, the research coming out of Israel and all of the trials and whatnot. So that, like you said, you can go in the German markets with the data, with the information,
Yep.
Prepared. Sir, we very much appreciate your time today. We are expecting great things, and yes, we'd love to have you back. So we will keep watching you, and we wish you all the best. So please stay in touch, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Patrick, and thank you for the opportunity to present here.
Absolutely. Thank you.